Fellow gamers, we have gathered once more, for the gaming gods have blessed us yet again with another banger for this month. And who could have guessed, it is yet another remake. Man, what is it with all these remakes being fantastic? We got Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil 2, and the Dead Space remakes. How is it possible for all these remakes to be so good? Oh yeah, there's the Resident Evil 3 remake. You can't win them all, I guess. Anyway, Capcom struck gold once again with this remake because Resident Evil 4 Remake is freaking awesome. First Dead Space and now this game? Man, survival horror fans are eating good this year. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, I've never played a Resident Evil game before because survival horror isn't really my thing. Not even the newer ones like 7, 8, or the recent remakes. So to say that I'm not familiar with the Resident Evil series is an understatement. I know I've missed out on so many great games for the past decade or so, but I'm making up for it starting this year. And what a year to start my survival horror catalog because these games are so freaking good. I'm just completely blown away by the sheer quality of Resident Evil 4 Remake. This game came out the gate swinging for that Game of the Year title, and honestly, so far, it makes a really good contender. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. The year hasn't even ended yet, and there's still so many more games that look really good that have yet to be released, like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, The Legend of Zelda, and Final Fantasy 16. But I'm putting the cart before the horse here. Let's talk about how good Resident Evil 4 is first. Resident Evil 4 takes place in an unnamed rural village somewhere in the middle of Spain. We play as Leon Kennedy, the American government agent with a really good knack for roundhouse kicking dudes in the head, and he has cheesy one-liners.
No thanks, bro.
Now I know why Leon is one of the most iconic characters in video gaming history. He's just so cool in every single cutscene he's in. Every time some shit goes down, he never breaks his masculine frame and he still manages to break the tension with some hilarious quips.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Jesus Christ!
God damn, you're a big boy. I am flattered. What am a one-lady type of guy?
Not only is Leon a badass cool guy, but he's also a really good comedic relief character. Like seriously, Leon is one of the most unintentionally funny main characters I've experienced in a while. Like Leon, this is a horror game, not a comedy. I should be scared, but instead, Leon has got me giggling like a schoolgirl with the amount of funny shit that he says.
Such a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance, Mr. Kennedy.
Who the hell are you?
Leon isn't the only character that's really awesome. We got other equally cool side characters like the ladies man Louise Sarah, the femme fatale Ada Wong, and Ashley Graham who screams a lot. Look, Ashley, I know you're being kidnapped by satanic cultists, but could you at least not blow out my eardrums every time they pick you up? But I jest, of course. Anyways, all the characters in this game are some of the most memorable, weird, and batshit crazy personalities that I could ever fathom being in a survival horror game. If I could offer one point of criticism, it would be that some of the voice acting in this game kinda sounds weird, especially Ada Wong's voice. A lot of people have been saying her voice acting just sounds bland, and I can definitely see that. The voice acting just sounds like she was bored in the recording studio.
You look like you've got something to say.
I have something to ask you. But I don't think I'll get a straight answer. Raccoon City. You know, after the incident, the world changed. You try to save one person, 100 others die. I guess I changed too.
You? Leon S. Kennedy. You haven't changed. You just think you have.
So here's my question. Have you changed, Ada? Or are you just trying to use me again?
What do you think? We're here. Don't think too hard, handsome. See you later.
Like, come on, I know the voice actress isn't terrible, so why was this the version they went with the final version of the game? Her original RE4 voice sounds so much better, and hearing her remake version is just kind of a letdown.
You look like you got something to say.
I have something to ask you. But I don't think I'll get a straight answer. Raccoon City. You know, after the incident, the world changed. You try to save one person, 100 others die. So here's my question. Have you changed, Ada? Or are you just trying to use me again?
What do you think? We're here. Don't think too hard, handsome. See you later.
What isn't a letdown though are the rest of the weird cast of characters that have no business being together in the same game, yet they've somehow made it work because the rest of the game is ridiculous as is. Why not add some more spice to it? Now what I love about RE4's story is how it plays like some cheesy 80s action film with how ridiculous everything gets. Like, what were the developers smoking when they came up with this? Wait, so you're telling me Darth Sidious, G.I. Joe, Napoleon, and The Undertaker all created this unholy demonic cult using an ancient parasite dug up from the bowels of the earth in order to infect the president's daughter so that she would bring the infection back to America and infect the president, then use his power to conquer the entire world? Well, sign me up. I'm a sucker for stories that don't take themselves too seriously, and RE4 does it so well. Now for people who've never played a Resident Evil game before like me, the RE4 Remake story is pretty much exactly the same as the original 2005 version, with some minor changes. I can now see why everyone loved the original RE4 so much, because the story is just one wild ride that gets crazier and crazier the entire way through. One moment you're investigating a weird village in a foreign country, the next moment you're trying to stop this parasitic cult from world domination. It's so ridiculous, but it works out so amazingly for this game because all the characters are so over the top and so comical that they're always a joy to watch whenever they're on screen. And honestly for me, Leon carries the whole story. I'm not really sure what the general sentiment about his remake version of him is, but I just love his cool guy demeanor and how he's never really fazed by anything. Like Leon, you just had a parasitic mutant virus injected into your nervous system that's slowly turning you to one of those aliens from the Parasite anime. How are you not freaking out?
What are you, my mother?
Leon is just so stoic throughout all of this, and he's still doing backflips and shit in the middle of combat.
Great.
Like, was doing a backflip here really necessary, Leon? I feel like backing up normally would have been just as effective and a lot safer. But if Leon wasn't as dramatic as he was, he probably wouldn't be as memorable. Anyway, I just love how the story is not something the developers intended for us to take seriously, and they just went all out on trying to one-up themselves with crazier and crazier set-piece moments, like the lake monster boss fight or the wild minecart ride. Then it all comes to a final climax at the end where you fight Sadler, where it's just peak action movie romp. The thing about RE4 is that even though it's a horror game, I wouldn't say it's really scary per se, because there wasn't really a moment where I was scared. There were definitely times where I was more unnerved, spooked out if you will. I think that's the more fitting term for the horror moments in RE4. Yeah, they're more unnerving than scary, like the regenerator parts of the game or the Verdugo part. And I just want to say that the horror parts of RE4 are done so well. It builds up this really tense atmosphere with the excellent use of spatial sound effects while you're walking in a really creepy and dark area. You can hear these really frightening and weird sounds all around you while you're walking. And the worst part is that you can never really pinpoint where exactly the sounds are coming from. So the entire time you're really tense because you never really know when something's going to jump out at you. But thankfully this game doesn't use any jump scares to make you feel scared, even though there were many moments where they could have done it. Anyway, my point is that RE4 makes excellent use of the unknown in order to add the fear factor in its gameplay. Whether it's weird sounds coming from the darkness, or a room full of body bags that could contain a regenerator ready to jump out at you at any moment, and thankfully they don't do a jump scare. And yes, I know all horror games do this, but like I said, this is coming from a perspective of someone who's never really played any kind of survival horror games. So this is pretty much brand new to me, and I can say I'm a big fan of it. Now the best part of Resident Evil 4 is undoubtedly the gameplay. This gameplay is so intelligently well crafted and so satisfying once you master the mechanics. I will admit it did take me a while to get used to the movement speed because it's a lot slower than what I'm used to, and there isn't really any dodge button outside of some QTEs. But in spite of that, this game is actually pretty forgiving in its mechanics because you can dodge or parry almost all the attacks in this game. And if you parry an enemy at the right moment, you can open them up for a swift roundhouse kick to the dome, and those roundhouse kicks are just mwah, chef's kiss. I freaking love kicking people in the head. In game of course. Even though this is a survival horror game and you're supposed to be fending off enemies as you're running away, RE4 does a complete subversion of this survival horror trope, and instead of the run and gun gameplay that we've come to expect, I've often found myself running towards the enemy. And this was something I was surprised about. It's that this game rewards you for playing aggressively. Whenever you stun an enemy, there's a small window where you can melee them, and there's never a time where it's not a good idea to go for a roundhouse kick on a stunned enemy because not only does it do damage, but it also knocks back everything caught within that kick in an AoE. And it's just so satisfying to kick these guys in the head. Speaking of melee combat, there's this boss battle with Krauser later in the game, and you can fight him entirely with your knife, and it's just so satisfying to clash blades with him. It makes you feel so badass when you deflect his flurry of knife attacks, then retaliating with a freaking roundhouse kick to the face. This is by far my most favorite boss fight in the game.
No mercy. Only devastating power. What's wrong?
Not only is kicking dudes in the head satisfying, but shooting them in the head is equally as satisfying. Whenever you shoot an infected, there's this clear visual feedback of your shot as they recoil from your bullet. You can even blast off individual body parts of the infecteds, and it feels so good when you shoot off their limbs or blow them to bits. Whenever you kill them, there's a bunch of blood, guts, and gore that just spews out of them in such a satisfying way. And there's so many different types of guns and weapons that all have their own purpose, that all cater to different types of playstyles. And you can switch between your weapons seamlessly in combat, and it just helps keep these moments tense when you can blow off an infected's head off and immediately switch to your shotgun to finish them off as they transform. And the best part about the combat is that there are no useless guns in this game. And it's just amazing how many different things you can do with just a starting handgun. You can shoot an infected in the head and open them up for a melee attack. You can shoot their arms in order to make them drop their weapons. You can shoot their legs to make them fall over. You can even shoot their projectiles mid-air. It's crazy how many different ways you can choose to approach a situation. And if you're good enough, you can even stealth past entire areas of the game without alerting a single enemy, which seems like a new feature added in the remake. But in my opinion, it's way more fun to shoot things and kick monsters in the head. Speaking of kicking monsters in the head, Even though I said earlier that this game was pretty forgiving, it still retains a pretty good amount of difficulty, even in standard mode. I've died quite a few times on normal mode, and not one of those deaths felt like they were BS because this game is well balanced around player skill. Every time I took a hit, it was always my fault that I took damage because I either missed my shot on them or I was too slow in parrying their attacks. There was never one death in this game where I felt was unfair, and that's just a testament to the amount of skill expression you can have in this game. And of course you can't have a healthy amount of skill expression without having enemy variety, and this game has loads of it. There are so many different kinds of enemies in RE4 that all require you to switch up your gameplay in order to deal with them. Although you'll be dealing with the standard grunt ganados with different variations most of the time, the game will slowly add new types of enemies throughout the game that change up how you deal with them. For example, you have the standard ganado at the beginning of the game who just run at you, and they're pretty easy to deal with. You just shoot them and they die. But when you kill them, they have a chance for a parasite to infect their corpse and revive them stronger than before. You can stop this process by knifing the corpse while it turns. The problem is that ganados come in packs. So if you want to knife the corpse, you're going to have to decide if you want to run past the other enemies and risk getting hit in order to stop the process, or not and let them turn. Then later on in the game, the ganados will have a chance to become a tentacle monster when you shoot off their head, making them much stronger and much more deadly. Now mix this with the other enemy types that the game throws at you and you've got a recipe for a complex combat sequence. Every encounter is sort of like a mini puzzle where you have a bunch of different enemy types that you have to deal with. Each encounter is an exercise in how well you can balance keeping yourself and Ashley alive while managing the resources you have at your disposal to eliminate the infected enemies. And it's just a big dopamine hit when you've bested every situation that the game has to throw at you. Although the encounters are the same in every difficulty because it's a linear experience, the game makes up for it with a really finely tuned level design. Some parts of the game you would have some sort of hub-like area with multiple paths where you have to get the thing, then come back to the main area in order to unlock the door for the next area, taking a page off of other popular linear games. There are ways to even skip past some parts if you're clever enough. These levels never really felt like a slog to go through as well, even when you have to backtrack, because it would always change when you return to the same area, allowing the game to still feel fresh. Capcom really knows how to keep the player engaged the whole way through, and I sincerely hope they continue to keep this tight level design for future Resident Evil games. Now I can't mention how great this game is without mentioning just the sheer amount of attention to detail there is in here. RE4 Remake looks fan-freaking-tastic. The textures of the character, the gun models are so detailed and so high resolution. And there's so many small movements and reactions that Leon has to the world around him. He'll brush the glass off him after jumping through a window. He'll reach out his hand to feel the rain when it starts raining. He'll flinch when a projectile whizzes by him. There's just so many small little details in this game that the developers really didn't have to put in, but they did because they respected the fans of the series. And I love the little banter Leon has with Ashley throughout the game. It makes her feel like she's an actual person with her own thoughts and feelings, instead of being just the president's daughter.
Hey, Leon, there's some armor. Bet you could use it like a bulletproof vest.
Little old-fashioned for my taste.
Too bad. I think you'd look pretty dashing.
Speaking of respecting the fans of the series, this game has so much replay value. Like, there's so much bonus content in this game. There's a bunch of post-game unlockable costumes, guns, and challenges that can massively change your playthrough the next time you start the game. Even though this game took me about 15 hours to beat on standard difficulty, there's still so much more content that I haven't even touched yet. Like trying to get an S+ in professional difficulty, or messing around with the shooting gallery minigame so you can play the real game, the gacha machine. And I hear that Capcom is going to release a mercenaries mode in the near future, for free, which sounds awesome. There's just so much to do here in this game for players that want to keep replaying it. and it just shows how much the developers actually care about the player experience. Capcom has been on a roll lately with constant banger after banger, and the RE4 Remake is no different. This has got to be one of the best games to release this year, and it's only March. Whether or not the original RE4 needed a remake is up for debate because the original was so beloved in its own right, but many would argue that the remake is a faithful modern adaptation to a cult classic video game. The graphics are beautifully detailed, the characters are all memorable, the gameplay is addicting with crisp and satisfying gunplay, and there are hours upon hours of replayable content. This game is the pinnacle of what remakes should be like. And the best part is that there's so many games that have yet to release, like Final Fantasy XVI, Jedi Survivor, and Tears of the Kingdom. But whatever games that are releasing this year, RE4 Remake makes a solid candidate for Game of the Year. And if you haven't bought it already, I fully recommend this game at full price because this game is amazing. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more reviews in the future. See ya.